Hey gang, Mark Sweeney here from Austin Dental Spa in beautiful and very hot Austin, Texas. If you're tuning in to Wisdom Wednesday for the first time, here's a little synopsis of what we do. We have a little fun. We talk about some kind of scientific topic, usually related to dentistry, but sometimes related to just overall health. And then I give a health tip at the end. We also make announcements about what might be going on around here at Austin Dental Spa. So I'm going to start with that because we have been in, for the last 5 years, the American Statesman, the local newspaper, has run contests. It used to be called the Best of Austin. This year they changed it to Austin Community Choice Awards, but it was basically the same thing again. 3 rounds of voting for the best, everything from the best breakfast taco to the best outdoor eating establishment to the best dry cleaner to the best dentist. And the last 5 years we've won either best dentist or best cosmetic dentist. Twice we've won both, and this year we hope it to be no different. We're done with the rounds of voting. Here are plaques from the last couple of years. Best dentist, best cosmetic dentist. This year we're in the final 3 for both categories again. So thank you to all of you out there watching who did vote for us every day during the 2-week voting periods. You put us on the map again. So we appreciate that. And I'll let you know in September when they have the gala, they call it, down at the Marriott downtown, and they'll announce the winners of each category with the final 3 there. So we plan on being there, and we plan on being in the winner's circle in at least one category, if not both. So thank you for your votes. If you also have watched Wisdom Wednesdays in the past, you know every month we have a theme. And the theme for this month has been Make a Splash in July. You can probably figure where we came up with that. We're going to talk about that a little bit. It ties into the health tip I'm going to give you today, which is how to stay cool out there in the hot temperatures. Now, the scientific portion, this is fascinating stuff. When do people reach their peak performance? You know, and so researchers have been studying this for decades, and the numbers keep changing. But, you know, what's the difference between an elite athlete in swimming compared to one of those elite athletes in World Cup sailboat racing? And when do they peak? And how about Olympic equestrians? Well, those are all different. And so we did a little study here, and it's very interesting stuff. Now, if you tuned in last week, we talked about how to get a crown in a day. If you missed that and it's something you're interested in, or any of our previous topics, you can go to our YouTube channel, Austin Dental Spa, or we're working on archiving all of these Facebook lives on Facebook, so you'll be able to access those soon. But for today, when do you physically and when do you mentally peak? Well, there's not just one good answer. So we're going to talk about that today. Economists, sports scientists, psychologists have all studied this stuff, like I've said, for decades. Here's the data on a couple of different categories. Elite swimmers peak in their early 20s. See you, Michael Phelps. He's in his late 30s now. Power lifters peak at age 35. 15-year difference. Equestrians peak even later. There's a guy trying out for the Olympics. I think he's Australian. 57 years old. He's been in the last 5 Olympics, and he has every intention of being in it again. Now, he's in the dressage category where the horse kind of dances, and I don't really understand enough about it to know what the rider is doing. Seems like the horse is the one they ought to be checking the age on. But anyway, there's a 57-year-old Olympian in there with every intention of being on the Olympic team. Me, my only chance at being an Olympian is going to be curling. I see those guys, and you can see them when they walk out at the Olympics, and the only guys that look out of shape and are balding and having a great time waving at the crowd are the curlers on the Winter Olympics. You know, those guys don't look like they have to be in shape. I can do that. I think I can sweep. And so I know I can push that rock on the ice. So anyway, equestrians are later, usually older. Creativity peaks either early in our careers or late in our careers, and it depends on what activity that is. So what scientists have said is that at every age, you're slowing down in one thing, and you may be peaking in another. So let's get into the physical part of it. You know, there's most of you know there are slow twitch and fast twitch fibers. The fast twitch fibers are the guys I always hated when I was growing up, because long, tall people don't have a lot of fast twitch fibers. But the little short guys with big legs, they were the sprinters, they were the weightlifters, they were the running backs on the football team. Us tall people with long muscles have more of the slow twitch fibers, and those actually mature later in life. So a lot of us are what they consider late bloomers, where we're good at sports like marathon running and things that go on over a long period of time. You know, a lot of elite athletes that do Ironman triathlons are in their 30s and 40s. A lot of 10K runners. We've got a patient right now who's in his 50s who's trying to run a 10K in every state in the lower 48, and he's about 30-something into it. So I hope you're watching. So sprinting. Here's some more statistics. Sprinters peak in their mid-20s, just like the elite swimmers. Endurance sports like marathons, athletes usually peak in their 40s. Tactical low-impact sports like sailing and equestrian competitions, athletes compete at elite levels all the way into their 50s. So it's what I was just talking about. What about mental peaks? Now that's a whole different thing. Mental peaks are totally different than the fast twitch and slow twitch fibers. But again, it depends on the work. They took a group of economists and they studied when did they write their best papers? When did they do their best work? If it was economic theories that were challenging conventional wisdom and that were more abstract, most of those economists, their work peaked at about age 25. But if it was economic works that were refined based on their body of work and their accumulated knowledge, those economists wrote their best work at the age of 50, which you could expect. They've got 20 more years of experience than the younger people. So same goes for artists. Pablo Picasso was a conceptual artist. Most of his stuff, most Picassos that are out there on the market that are being sold for millions of dollars, he did those in his 20s. Whereas Robert Frost, an American poet that is fairly well known in poetry circles, he didn't publish his first book of poetry until after the age of 40. How about chess players? They did a study of chess players, 24,000 chess players, all ages, all abilities, and they said chess players, if they start in their teens, their abilities rise quickly into their mid-20s, and then they kind of peak. But the peak for 35,000 chess players was around 35 years old. And then you've got people like that, oh gosh, I can't think of it, Bobby Fischer. He was in his 50s and 60s, and he was knocking off people half his age. So we love that stuff. Now let's talk about languages. Languages, they say that there's a peak at about 30 years. So if you're born in America and your only language is English, you're going to peak at about 30 years old, that you've learned most of the vocabulary you're going to use the rest of your life. But what's interesting is they found no matter what age you start, if you start learning another language, it takes you about 30 years to peak at that. So if you started in your 20s, you've got 30 years before you peak at French or German or Russian or something like that. So I wrote this down because it made me curious. Harlan Sanders, Colonel Sanders, that started Kentucky Fried Chicken. He didn't start that until he was 65 years old. He had nothing before that. He was just experimenting with cooking fried chicken. And at 65 years old, he started the first Colonel Sanders franchise, and he was a multimillionaire before he died. He lived into his 90s. And another one was, what's her name? She was a well-known artist when I was a kid, and I've got her written down. Grandma Moses. Grandma Moses was a tailor. She sewed things. And when she hit 65, her hands got bad and she couldn't do embroidery anymore and do stitching, so she changed to painting. It's at 65, almost 70 years old, and she painted some works that got sold for millions of dollars. And she didn't even start until she was 75 years old, and she lived to be 100. So they started out putting her paintings in like a thrift store. And people started saying, who painted that? I'll buy that. So her first paintings were a couple of bucks each. Her final paintings were worth millions. So you're never too late to start something new. So I hope that's inspiring to you. It certainly is to me. And now the health tip that I promised you at the beginning, how to stay cool in this weather. Well, scientists have found that cold water especially, but keeping your hands and your feet in cool water will help. I also found from years of playing tennis in this 100-degree heat that the main thermostat in your body is the top of your head. So if you want to stay cool, keep your head covered, and I would dip my hat in cold water in between every 2 games you change to the other side of the court. I would dip it in cold water and just put it on my head without drying it off and let that water evaporate, and it immediately cooled my body temperature down. So those are some tips that can help you stay cool in this weather. The best tip I can give you is just stay indoors where the air conditioner is on. I hope that's been helpful information. Sorry it went on a little long, but it was cool information. Cool. Did you catch what I did there? And I'll see you next week for yet another version of Wisdom Wednesday. Stay cool.